Taylor and Paula here from Beaten Jeans, and today we are interviewing Jennifer, or Jen. So this is the first time that we've talked to somebody who is the spouse of somebody who's gone through a total gastrectomy, and we're so excited to talk to her and hear how she experienced this journey, what her emotions were and feelings towards everything. So we're going to go ahead and invite her in. It's Faith Fit Fun is her name if you're interested. And here she is. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Can you guys hear me okay? I've got my earbuds in.
Yes,
we can hear you good.
Okay. Yay.
Do you like to go by Jennifer or Jen?
Jen's good.
Okay.
Jen. Okay.
Yep.
Hi, Jen.
Yep. Hi.
And you're coming from Missoula, Montana.
Missoula, Montana. And it's actually sunny today, a little windy, but man, we have had snow this last week.
I
Crazy.
know. We're jealous.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Jealous?
We're so jealous.
No,
It's like,
I'm not.
it's dry
for that.
and windy. It's
I'm
horrible.
ready for summer.
Yeah, I'm so ready for summer. We started spring sports. So when you go watch a track meet on like cold bleachers and it's, 28 degrees outside, it's not really fun.
No, that's not fun.
No.
So you are Anders' wife, and we interviewed him. He's our episode 29.
Okay.
Right. So we're so excited to be talking to you and get the spousal perspective.
Yes. This is
Yes.
important because we're both married and we're both probably, Polly's going through it. I eventually will probably go through it. And I think it's important for the spouse or the partner to understand what all of this entails. And it's not all roses. And so...
Right. And just a couple weeks ago in the symposium with NIH, they talked about how that's something that's lacking in their education involving the spouse. So hopefully.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is so new, at least what we experienced. Nobody in our circle of influence had ever, I'm going to turn my light on just in case that helps. Nobody in our circle of influence had ever heard of it, dealt with it.
Right.
Not even the doctors here in the area that we live. Like when he came back, and we can touch on that later, but when he came back, I wanted him to have this team of doctors that were keeping an eye on everything. And, there was nobody that knew what he went through.
Right.
It was a really vulnerable, it gives me goosebumps just thinking back to that. I just felt so exposed and like, I don't know, it's a unique community. And I wish we had dug deep. I wish we had found you guys, but I wish we had dug deeper into this community because I think it would have really helped both of us.
Well, I think you're right, though. I don't think it was as big as it is now because he had his surgery done 5 years ago.
2015.
Right.
Yeah,
So 7 years ago.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We didn't even know at that point.
Well, we've known that's when we found out that we carried it 7 years ago.
Right.
And there wasn't much. There were only 100 people in the NIH study at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All we knew, we had connected with some people that had blogs like in Australia, I think, in the UK. So outside of the United States seemed way more open to not only the idea of doing something prophylactically, but also just talking about it and going through the gene therapy and there's ethics involved and all of that. So
of course. Yeah.
So why don't you take us back? Okay. So 7 years ago, Anders had a surgery, but before that, when he found out, so it was his brother that found out initially, correct?
Yep. It was his brother. So I want to say that was 2014 around in there. And his brother was, do I tell this story or don't I tell this story?
Tell it.
I'll tell it. Danny will love it. So his wife at the time, his brother was complaining. His brother was very close to their mom, and he watched, mom was diagnosed in April, died in June, I think, or something like that, really quick. Because as you guys know, that cancer, hers kind of was found in kind of the lining of, it's in the lining of the stomach, and it was kind of going through the esophagus, but nothing detected it. And that's the hard part about that cancer. So she knew she was off, but all of the doctors were coming back like, you're fine. Kind of like it's in your head, which is so difficult to watch somebody lose so much weight, know something's wrong, but nothing comes back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Diagnosed in April finally, and then just quick, you know. And so his brother had more of a front row seat to that. We had been married, a couple years, had already moved to Montana. So I think his brother always felt like, you know, like we do as kids and young adults, is we feel like, okay, I'm going to end up like my parents, right? Whatever the case may be. And he just had it always in the back of his head, and his stomach started really hurting. And I think he was just really stressing himself out, thinking he has cancer. He's going to get the cancer. And his wife at the time was like, would you just go get tested? Would you do something about this? Because I'm done hearing about it, is basically how it all came down. And so long story short, he got tested, was negative, called Andy and said, you really need to get tested. And that's when the fun began.
Wow. And how did you feel about him getting tested? Were you on board?
To be completely honest, we have 5 kids. I had 6 pregnancies. With every pregnancy I had, when it came up for amniocentesis or something like that, my thought was always, I don't want that information, which sounds, you know, everyone's different. But at the time, I just didn't want to have the knowledge. I just wanted to like have my baby, right? And I didn't, it's wherever I was at in life. It's what it is. And I felt a little bit similar with that, is I don't really even want to know if you have this, because I just want to live life. And if there's 83% chance you're going to have the cancer, well, then there is my math is probably going to be totally wrong, 18% or whatever, that you won't get it. Mm-hmm. Like, and my God is big. Even if you had a 2% chance of not getting it, God's huge. Like, he could take that 2% and you could be that person.
Right.
So it was a real struggle with my faith of going in this direction. Is that going against my faith? It was weird. It was a real hard struggle for me. And I think the backstory behind that too is, and I don't know, Andy won't mind me telling this because this is a big part of his story, is he's always struggled with depression. Mm-hmm. And at this point, we had been married long enough. And to be honest, we weren't in a great place at the time. And his depression had a lot to do with it. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so you're going to get tested. If you find out you're positive,
right?
How are we going to survive your mental health? You guys know what I'm saying? Like, again, goosebumps. Like, this feels like a matzo ball bigger than we can handle. Right. And it scared me to death at the thought of how he was going to work through all of this, knowing what I know he struggled with prior, you know?
Right.
So we fought.
It's such a huge part of it. I think that's probably one of the biggest
I think that's really smart of you to think about that, because I didn't even think about how it would affect me, my results. I just thought, oh yeah, I'll get tested. Whatever it is, it is. I didn't even consider how it was going to affect me. So
not at all. We didn't at all.
No, we just did it.
But then when it came back positive, our worlds ended.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it feels. Is, I mean, what is this? 14, so that's 8 years ago. Our kids at the time would have been 12, 11, 9, 7, and 6.
Babies, yeah.
They're babies.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I struggled. And I always equate it to God and I took my struggle away from Andy, because it's Andy's body. It's his decision in the end. And I took my struggle back to God and just wrestled with God for a good 6 months. I mean, drag out wrestling match. And
this is after you found out
like
that he was positive, or before he even tested?
Before he even tested.
Okay. Yeah, because it's almost like the like God has your life planned out, right? And like, you don't want to interfere with what he has then for your life. Yeah. I can see that totally.
So then, in the end, it was like, all right, this is his body and his passion. And I think part of his passion when he interviewed with you guys too is he's now so victorious, and his passion was, I want to be there. I'm a mom. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 5. If I have the chance to reduce the risk I'm going to do it because I want my kids to have a father.
Yeah.
So he wanted oh my gosh, his heart is gold. And, I couldn't argue with that,
Yeah. I know. That's the hard part. When you have kids, it's this whole new layer on it.
Well, and then you layer on the 50-50 for them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a whole nother interview.
Oh. So, okay. So you finally, you talked to God and you decided, okay, it's ultimately Andy's decision to do this.
Yeah.
So he gets tested.
He gets tested, and we had to go through gene therapy or whatever it was called. I forget, where we had to do some Zoom interviews, and just, I think, to make sure we were ready to.
Oh, that's nice.
That is, yeah, it was really.
I didn't get any of that.
I
was spitting the cup and sent it away.
Yeah, I forget who it was. He had to do therapy with them, and then I had to join him for one of I don't remember who it was, but anyway, they required that before they did the testing.
That's nice. They need
one. Yeah, and I think it's really important because imagine if someone, not that we're mentally stable, but imagine if someone wasn't.
Right.
There's a lot that plays into your recovery, and obviously we now know that. So he gets tested and it's positive. And I was devastated. And I think he was devastated. And then it was like pivot. You don't stay in that, you can't stay in that mindset or mind space very long. So we just pivot. And I'm a fighter. So another interesting moment in this tug of war was, drive to Seattle. So we live in Montana. Seattle's 8 hours away. So we would go and see a specialist, the best specialist. I would research everything and I'd be like, all right, this is the guy to go to. We would leave after work on a Friday night, drive 8 hours with our 2 youngest, sent the 3 oldest with my parents, get there, meet with the specialist. And he would say, no doubt you need to do a total gastrectomy. And I'm like, he's wrong. So we'd go back and we would do it again, like a month later, and we'd meet with another specialist. I think I made Andy go to 3 or 4 specialists.
Good.
All of them.
Specialists in
gastrectomy or CDH1?
Gastrectomy, and they had previously performed it on CDH1 patients.
Okay. And they all unanimously said, you have to have a gastrectomy.
Yes.
Okay.
So I gave up that fight.
Yeah.
And scheduled surgery and had people just praying for us. And our oldest came with us. His brother came, met him to hang out with our oldest during the surgery. And we thought the fight of our life would be the surgery because you guys know, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before the surgery, how did you prepare like your home and your kitchen? And I want to know if what you prepared was the right thing to prepare.
Right. Or can you not ever prepare?
I don't think right. Gosh, I wish I had this amazing homemaker answer for you. I don't think you can. I mean, I think you can, for the most part, like if you guys already have that figured out way better than we did. If you're juicing, if you're, you've got your garden, maybe you've got things already canned, like the food is a big deal, but you still, even that, you don't know what I'm sure like you guys, we read things where people had feeding tubes for a year, then people had no feeding tubes. And then there was people that everyone's story was so different. We didn't know what he was going to need or it was such an unknown, to be honest. So I think the craziness of having 5 kids in that age range, we were just trying to get them all organized at my parents' house. Right. I don't even know if we thought about life after.
How long were they with your parents while you were with him in the hospital?
Oh my gosh, how long were we gone? I want to say it was a good 3 weeks.
Oh, that's a long time to be away.
3. We might have pushed 4 weeks, something like that.
And you didn't see the kids during that time?
No, we FaceTimed.
Yeah.
Like I said, my oldest was with us. And I had a friend that lived in Seattle, and she let us stay there. So
that's
Andy
nice.
was in the hospital for, I think, a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then he recovered at her house for the next couple weeks. And then we headed home.
Yeah.
But we didn't want him to come back to Montana even after a week, because so many complications can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did
we were
anything
so
happen?
Was he, like, when he came out of surgery, was he awake and aware, or was
he had a tough time. He had a real tough time. His body was not happy. And I don't remember what the issue was, something with his heart rate or something. The pain was very intense. That first hour when I was allowed to see him in post-op, it was scary. No doubt about it. It was so scary. And I think he told you guys, he kind of beefed up before.
Yeah.
If we look back on pictures, and we're like, you really did beef up. So he had a lot of reserves. I don't even know if that works, but he had a lot of reserves to work with. But it was crazy. Every day I saw, he was just getting tinier and tinier every day.
Did the hospital in Washington have him eating right away?
Nope. So his doctor gave him a feeding tube. His was all done laparoscopically. So he didn't have like it was all these little tiny holes. And then they had a feeding tube. So he had a feeding tube. The lady came over, showed us how to get the cans, how to feed them. And the funniest thing out of all of this is I hate bodily fluids. Like, even though we have 5 kids, I was the mom. I'm still the mom that's like, it's bleeding. Okay. Your dad gets home in about 4 hours. I think like, I'm not touching it. Like, if someone throws up, if someone spits, and I have 4 boys, so you can imagine, like, I hate bodily fluids. It's just, it's so gross to me. So here he is, like, he's got tubes, he's got a feeding tube, and this was like, he's the love of my life. I fell fast in love with him when I was 17. Like, and then to see him in that position, it rocked my world.
Mm-hmm.
I was not prepared for that at all.
And
just seeing him in that state of like not being unwell.
Yeah.
Not
recognizing him.
Yeah. Not just seeing all the muscle slowly go away, and then a constant pain at the beginning, just a constant frustration, some pride there. His pride was hurt. And but such a fighter, just determined, and that can be good and bad.
Was he did his depression come back during that time, or
so if we fast forward, I think he told you guys the story. He was at work and like went upstairs, because he worked at a hospital, went upstairs and had the doctor yank out his feeding tube,
right?
Because it was so painful, and he was it kept reminding him that, and the mental part of going into a hospital healthy and choosing to leave less than, like, you left part of yourself in that hospital.
Well, and I've heard also he got his results and he did not have any sickness. And that is something that probably really affected you if you didn't want him to from the beginning, right?
It was one of those things of, I mean, it didn't really affect me like, oh my gosh, why'd we do this kind of thing. But it was like, okay, well, it hadn't, we were both pretty much, I think deep down we knew he was going to get it. And whether it was there or not, at that point, we're like, whatever, we did what we needed to do. There was no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, and you'd want it that way. You don't want to find anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look totally different. You'd be doing chemo and knows what else.
So you didn't like bodily fluids. So what was your role during that time when he was recovering?
At your friend's house, not even in your own home environment.
Yeah.
That was
what was your role like those first 2 weeks?
A caregiver. It was all caregiver, and it was a beautiful thing. It's almost like you can compartmentalize your role. You're like, I am a caregiver right now, and I will handle bodily functions.
Oh, you did it?
I had to. I had no choice.
I thought maybe you asked your friend.
No. That was my job. But no, gosh, it was honestly a whirlwind when I look back on it. He's very independent. He's very stubborn. So, you know, he did a lot of that on his own. And interestingly enough, he always had some GI issues since we had been dating and married. So, you know, like diarrhea, all that stuff, that wasn't new. So I don't know. He's a guy. So, but yeah, so he recovered, and then we headed home. And I really feel like recovering from surgery, we felt like, okay, we did it. Like you're good. And then when he got home, I think the hardest adjustment for us was out of nowhere, he'd get really, really sick. And he would have gas. It would smell really, really bad. And I don't know if people ever talk about that, but it's for him, it was so bad. And that was his reality. And he would be like on the couch, like, oh, you know, like kind of moaning in so much pain. And he just had to kind of get through it. After a while, that energy, I'm like the mom that's like, okay, everybody's happy. Let's be happy, you know? And okay, like that's his reality, but it's not their reality. It's not my reality. We have to keep going. And energy is a real thing, you know? So when you have that low energy and that like pain, someone we all love so much in so much pain, the whole house all of a sudden felt like there was a dark cloud over it.
Oh, yeah, right. I can see that.
And so then I had to kind of like, I hate even saying it, like, can we take it to the room? Like, can you lay down in the bedroom and like shut the door? Like, this is not their reality. And I don't want to be like, we don't want to see your reality. That was tough, you guys. I don't even know how to explain it. It was a really tough.
The kids don't understand. I mean,
they don't.
Do a point.
Did you guys tell them about?
Oh yeah,
all of it. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that's scary for them to watch that,
Yeah,
knowing that it could be a potential reality for them.
Yeah. And yes, that was a tough part. And to this day, like even last week, he was having tons of pain, and he just now knows. This is 7 years later. He now knows. He goes and lays down, and we all just know he's not moaning or anything like that. And he just has to kind of get through it, kind of the dumping syndrome. He'll lose all color in his face, and we can all recognize it now. But he had like black, his eyes got really black during recovery. I'll have to send you guys pictures. His face was really sunken in, no color. I didn't even recognize my husband at a certain point. And it was scary because he wasn't getting any nutrition. The feeding tube was providing some, but then when he introduced foods, it's another scary thing. How's your gut body? Because everybody's different. We read so many things, avoid this. Okay, I'll avoid that. Eat this. He eats that and he gets sick. So everybody's body, and we always joke that you don't know when his intestines are going to go on strike. And that's kind of what we joke about is they go, we're done. They hold up their sign and they said, we're done. Even if you could have eaten that yesterday and we did fine today, we don't like it.
Right. That's hard for you, isn't it? Was he preparing his foods at this time, or was that you who was?
No, he's really good at that. Like I've never prepared his food. He's amazing at. He's a better stay-at-home mom than I am. Like he can open the fridge and figure out whatever he wants to eat. Like I've never had to do that for him, but it does make like cereal is one thing that gets him every time. So he can't eat cereal, but the human spirit, you can't have something.
Then you want it. Yeah.
You kind of want it, even though you're going to pay the price.
Yeah.
So just things like that. But he can eat steak and potatoes, and we go out on date night. We've learned that we need to split dishes. I mean, for both our goods.
Yeah.
But yeah, he eats totally normal. But the process of recovery, once he got healed physically, it was a really tough season for us because he felt less than, he felt guilty. He felt like he had brought such a huge disruption to our house and such a huge, intense situation to the kids' lives. He was guilt-ridden. He had shame. Then he wondered if he should have done it. Did he make a mistake for doing it? Like, he just beat himself up and got into a really, really deep depression.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up losing.
Cry because that's exactly what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
I think if you're aware of it and you have loved ones around you, you just take it day by day, you know, and it's hard. Was
it something that you just were constantly like, okay, kids, like, we need to talk to you, was it just like constant communication between the seven of you about how everyone is feeling, or did you just try and just stay happy and just kind of move on with?
I think we just took it day by day, because the reality is I still had to make money. Right. I still had to get the kids to sports. I still had to, like, my reality couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. Like, if we stopped and talked about this all the time, we'd be living under the bridge, because none of us could make money.
Yeah.
So you can only talk about it so much.
Right.
And the reality is life has to go on.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that delicate balance. And I'll admit, there was a point, I think probably a year after the surgery, where I was like, I'm done hearing about it. I'm done. We always say we didn't want to walk around and have smoke still around us. We didn't want people to smell the ashes.
Yeah.
And
you want it to be your whole life.
Really, like, it revolves around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you see people at the grocery store and it's always, how's Andy? I still get it. But now we've switched it to, I think for him, he had to go through that depression. And then we joke, there's a time, I shouldn't joke about it because it's not funny. He was suicidal. There was one day that he just really thought, we would be better off without him. Mm-hmm. And it's such a lie. We know that. But we were doing so bad in our marriage because of this, like, tension, that I'm like, no, I would like to take you out. Like, don't steal that joy from me. let me
pleasure.
Take you out. But I mean, we laugh about it now, but that's the reality of recovery. Mm-hmm. We thought the physical recovery was going to be the hardest, and it was honestly the adjustment of, I had to fall in love with this new man again. I mean, physically, and find a new normal. Like, what does that look like? But the bottom line, and I think this is why he is always so positive when he talks about it, is he wanted to show, and I would tell him this over and over again, your kids, the likelihood of your kids having this same surgery is pretty high. We have 5. Mm-hmm. And, do you want them to look at you like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it because look how miserable daddy is?
Right.
Like, you did this so that you could stay around. Yeah. I mean, there's no crystal ball. We don't know if, there could be a car accident, whatever. You can't guarantee. But you can remove that risk. And it's like, you did this so that you could be present.
Yeah.
So what do you want to leave? What legacy do you want to leave for the kids? And now that is his platform, is like, I am victorious through this. I am. And that's why, Polly, that's why he is, like, so positive about it, because he's still here. And he is, like, he's the most fit. You guys have seen, he is so fit. He's so confident. He has such a depth about him that he never had before, which I always prayed for, like, that character. Yeah. And, you never know how that's going to come about. But this brought about such a depth to his character. It's beautiful. Like, he's victorious. So now the kids can look at that. They're all teenagers now, and not, of course they'll be scared, but not look at it like, I don't want to do what daddy did.
Right. He came out a better man after all of it, right?
And quite frankly, and Taylor, are you doing the same thing?
I don't. I'm just taking the surveillance route right now.
Okay. So I will tell you this, Polly, his decision, to the way we look at it, there's just not too many parents, and I used to say men, but now that I've met you, there's not too many parents that are willing to lay down their life for their kids. Mm-hmm. I don't know very many that would do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's not common. And you're doing it for them. And that, like, as a wife, it makes him so attractive. Because it's just beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful that a man would be willing to sacrifice his physical appearance, like a piece of him is gone for his kids, so they don't have to live, you know, without their father.
Right. Also to be that wonderful role model if they needed to go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a big drive for me.
Absolutely.
Like, for sure. I don't think I would do it otherwise without kids.
Yeah. Totally.
So did he seek therapy or counseling?
Yes.
And did that help him through that? Because I know that the vagus nerve and your gut has a lot of serotonin in it, and that just in and of itself can be harming for someone who didn't ever struggle with depression.
Absolutely. And it's your second brain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had therapy. He went through a lot, journaling. That's why I said, like, coming out on this end, the man you see today, 4:30 every morning, he is working out in the basement. He is journaling every single morning. He is so disciplined because his life depended on it.
Mm-hmm. And what about you? Did you have to get counseling?
You know, I never got counseling. I probably should have. I never got counseling, but I have an incredibly strong faith. Journaling is a huge part of my mental health. Hiking, I hiked nonstop. I think I got it out at the gym. The gym was my therapy. But I think everyone could use therapy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell my kids that I'm going to save up for therapy for them and not college. They'll probably need it. But it's a big deal. And people, I'm so glad you guys are here, because people just don't talk about it.
Right.
And the community, I will say another aspect to it, which I wish we had you guys, was, you know, when you get pregnant and it like invites people's opinions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To this day, we face a lot of opinions about his decision.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. It doesn't just come before the surgery, it continues on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
And how do you guys deal with that?
For the most part, now we're just like, we don't even care. Those people don't matter. I don't say that everyone matters, but it just doesn't, they're not in our life. And even if it's close family, they just don't understand, like, the hours of research you guys have done. You can't explain that to a loved one. You can't explain that to someone on the internet. You can't explain in a 10-minute run-in at the grocery store how you arrived at this decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you could try to explain it to somebody. So
I guess you just say it's personal.
It's personal. It's personal, and it's something that we just feel like we were supposed to do. You just don't even have to, you know what? You don't even have to justify it.
You don't. Right. I know.
So,
yeah, my in-laws don't even talk about it. It's a mute subject. It's kind of awkward. Something so life-changing for me, and they won't even bring it up.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you lose a baby, you don't want people to tiptoe around it. You do want people to talk about it and ask you questions. I love when people say, so they're so scared to ask me, so does Andy eat? Like, does he eat what you eat? And they're kind of scared. And I'm so sarcastic. Sometimes I want to be like, no, like, he has to, there's a little needle I have to feed him with. It's really,
like a baby bird.
Yeah, a baby bird. The funniest thing is he did, again, not funny, but it is funny now. He had a blockage 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. And
he came out of surgery, and the doctor comes out to the waiting room, and he says, I really need your help. And I'm like, yes, whatever. Like, is he okay? And, you know, where his feeding tube went in, it had pinched like a garden hose. It had all the scar tissue. It kinked. And then everything started building up. And he goes, I really need your help. I'm like, yes, whatever. And he goes, he needs to chew his food better.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I already have 5 kids.
So that fixed it? Just chewing better.
they cleaned out they had to clean out the blockage. He had surgery to fix it all, but moving forward, he hasn't had a blockage since.
Good.
But he said
3 years he still had a feeding tube, or was it reintroduced?
no, it was scar tissue from his feeding tube hole.
Oh.
So where the feeding tube went in his intestines, like, you know, your intestines are doing this, like right on this curve is where the feeding tube came in, and where that feeding tube was made me get yanked out at the doctor's office. Some scar tissue built up, and so the intestines just pinched.
That's scary. So he had to have like intestinal surgery.
Yep. And it's not uncommon. So we kind of always keep our, you know, for about a year after that, every time he got sick, I'm like, oh, like, do we need to go to the hospital? No, it's okay, but it can happen.
So how is life today? Like, are you still struggling with the whole thing?
No, not at all. No, we're so healed. It's amazing. Like, God used it. What I feel like could have taken us out, and we got really close. He just used it to strengthen us, like I said, strengthen his character, strengthen our marriage. It's never been better. And that's another story of just, you know, marriage is about, you know, for you guys, whatever surgery you decide, marriage is constantly recommitting to that person, the new person. Like you don't get the luxury of staying in love with the person you fell in love with. Right, it's just not how it works. It's commitment of recommitting to the new person. And it's like, I had this new man that I got to fall in love with. He's not the same man physically. I mean, that's the weirdest part for me. Physically, he is not the same man. It's the weirdest thing. But I love this man. I love this new man even better, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so good. Like, it's so cool because we don't have smoke around us anymore. We don't have ashes around us anymore. But yet we can share our story from a victorious platform and encourage others, because it doesn't matter if it's a total gastrectomy or a double mastectomy or whatever, a child going through a health concern. Like, it's adversity.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think we can all learn from each other's adversity, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's very beautiful. Very beautifully said.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, how long do you think it took to get to that point? Because you said that he changed physically, and like, how did that affect your relationship as far as like intimacy goes? Like, how long did it take for you to introduce that back?
That was tough because intimacy is a big part of our marriage. And and we don't shy away from talking about it on social media or and so I don't remember what the date was, but I will never forget. We were in Whitefish, Montana. We were staying in a hotel room, and it was, I think, a business trip for me, and he'd come along. I think he's had his feeding tube out, and we had not been intimate since his surgery. And I was scared to death because the man that I hugged before, so muscular, like big muscles, makes me sound really vain, just big biceps, big triceps, big, like just a very muscular. Mm-hmm. And the man that I was hugging in that hotel room that night was like, I can't even explain it. The muscle tissue was soft. Mm-hmm. And I could feel his bones. Mm-hmm. And he went to hug me. I thought I was going to hurt him. And I had this picture of that, you know, when this, like, in fact, I found it and I sent it to him. It was like this really skinny old man and this really big lady. I'm like, that's what we're going to look like when we're old. Like, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to like hurt you because you're going to be this beanpole and I'm like going to keep getting bigger. But psychologically it messed with me. Mm-hmm. Because intimacy for me has to be safe. And, I felt like I was trying to make love to someone I didn't know.
Right. That's so sad.
It was really sad. I have pages in my journal written about it that night, and I just bawled. And the bottom line was I grieved. I had to grieve. Mm-hmm. So I went through a grieving process, And my grieving process was, I had to grieve the man I was married to. I had to let go of that. I had to say goodbye to that. I had to say goodbye to whatever normal is, which is so stupid. None of us have a normal, but I had to say goodbye to whatever our normal was. I had to grieve.
Yeah.
And then going through the healing process and like just surrendering myself to God and saying, okay, like, I know that you can bring us out of this and be stronger than ever. It's just the process from here to there sounds really exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you're still trying to raise kids. You're still trying to make
Right.
money. You're still trying to like feed everyone and pay bills. You know, life doesn't stop.
That is a lot for you to take on. And it's good that you allowed yourself to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And recognizing it. My friend, Jamie Beeson always said, you got to feel it to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you got to recognize it. You cannot stuff it. You cannot be like, oh, it's totally fine. I'm still attracted to you. Like that would have not been true to what I needed to go through.
And were you open with Anders about how you felt about that?
I think we've been married so long, he knew, he could feel it, you know?
Yeah. Did
So,
he feel that way too? Yeah. Did he
feel
feel less
like
manly?
less? Yeah.
yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did. But you know, fast forward and I can't keep my hands off of him now. So I mean, it's so beautiful to go through. It just strengthens your marriage. It strengthens your relationships. You just have to be committed to the process. It's not going to be overnight. I think anything that is beautiful and worth building, it's a long-term commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And everybody's situation's different.
Right. It is. It's so different. And they've learned so much. They've learned so much about CDH1 and gastrectomy in just the 7 months since he's had his surgery.
Yeah. Which is so encouraging. And who knows, like, I kind of wonder, I feel like we flopped through his recovery. We were just kind of flopping out there on our own with no team to be like, yes, this is normal. Because every day I would be like, call your doctor. Is this normal? Are you supposed to be throwing up? Are you supposed to be like, is this normal every day? I would get so frustrated because I'm like, is this normal? Is this normal? And it's kind of like,
and there was no one to reach out to.
You didn't have a nutritionist working by your side.
He tried to go to a nutritionist. They'd never seen a total gastrectomy patient. They had seen like gastric bypass or, you know, things like that. They tried to give him the FOD map. Is it the FOD? Map thing. Yeah, it was very frustrating. So I think that makes a big difference if you had a team going into your recovery.
Yeah.
That would be one thing I would suggest looking back.
So how many years did it take from his surgery to, I'm sure he told us, but I can't remember, from his surgery to feeling himself again? Was it 3 years? No,
I would say, yeah. I think it was about 3 years.
Yeah.
So that would have taken him to 2018. I'm trying to think, because we've had some, I can kind of pinpoint different timelines. 2018 was his blockage. So I think he was starting to feel good, had that surgery. And then from there, it all was uphill. I mean, it was all good, you know.
And then life was just kind of back to normal again.
Yeah, but he's still, like I said, last week he was sick. He's still, and his energy level is not, although we joke that he's old, his energy level is not where I think sometimes he'd like it to be. Nutrition is huge. The supplements have changed everything for him.
Right.
But you know, the different things like not being able to drink water, you know, different things like that. You just know he's not getting the nutrition his body needs without having.
But what about you though? Like, are you ever like, I want to go on this long hike, but I know that he's not going to be able to stick with me, so I'm just not going to suggest that? Or do you?
At the beginning, yeah, I would just do it alone. Now he can kick my butt in anything now.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he is like, he will do my long hikes with me. He's amazing.
But you were okay with that in the beginning, like I don't know.
It was tough. It was tough because I was like, you know, you want your man, you want your man to be a man, you know, you don't want it to be like, oh, are you okay? Do you need to go to bed?
Yeah.
Do I need to give you your blankie?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that at all. You just know it's temporary. And you know what? At the time, I remember thinking, well, if this is what it is that's what it is. I have him here. That's what matters. So we'll pivot.
You got to get back to the basics.
Got to get back to why.
Yeah.
And let go of any expectations. I mean, that's marriage 101, but you just have to get rid of any of your expectations on that and kind of go with it. Because as much as we struggle as the spouse, I can't even imagine how he was struggling.
Mm-hmm. And then Taylor and I were wondering about like cooking and like prepping food, and how has that changed for you as far as your eating habits? Have you kind of emulated him? Are you snacking more along with him, or do you?
No. He eats smaller meals for sure. I probably should, but I honestly eat 4 meals a day anyway that are, you know, we follow this thing called the meal method, and it's basically we get our protein in there with a healthy fat and some carbs and tons of veggies. So we try to follow that for each meal, and it honestly, it's not a thing. We don't do anything differently. He just barbecued some steak the other day. Nothing like today, 7 years later, nobody would even know if they came into our house. He just might not eat as much, but nobody would know.
Oh,
I just have to be careful not finishing his plate.
Oh. Like a mom, you're eating the crumbs or the crust of the peanut butter.
Eat that?
Well, and as a spouse too, you don't want to be like, you're seriously going to order that?
Right.
Yeah. Or, you know, you don't want to cross that line, and you kind of just have to watch what happens.
Yeah. Like where do you insert foot in mouth now?
Yeah, you can't nag. You just gotta watch things. But the funniest thing ever, oh my gosh, this is the funniest memory, is when we first had tequila and after his surgery. And I was like, we got to celebrate. And tequila is my favorite thing in the world. I mean, drink wise. And this was so funny because, you know, we did shots and I was like, okay, take a shot. And he like immediately hit him so hard. And he was just on the couch and like all the color drained from his face. And I could not stop laughing. I'm like, oh, we're going to have fun with this. This is going to be fun. Because I mean, you're going to be such a cheap drunk. No. But that was probably one of my favorite memories, just because we were able to take a situation that was totally different and laugh at it because it was so funny. I mean, it was hilarious. And I think we just needed that pressure relief too.
Right. Yeah, humor is always a good thing.
Yeah, because the alternative is not fun.
Right.
Oh no, why did we take the tequila shot?
And now kids, through all of this, going back to them, so I know you have the 5, and seeing Anders struggle and seeing you be the caretaker. How are they okay? Did they ever need to have counseling or?
You know, we offered it to our oldest because I think our oldest saw the most. He came to Seattle with us. He saw the feeding tube. He came home with us. I mean, I hate to even say it, but we fought a lot after probably a year after his recovery because there was just so much tension. And so my oldest was really exposed to that a lot more. And then at the same time, on top of that, I had been switching businesses. So we had this like money stress and trying to start up a new business. And so I offered counseling to my oldest. He didn't want to do it. But I think, you know, I just posted this the other day. We were sitting around the other night and my daughter says, she's looking through pictures on my phone. She's 13 and she goes, oh man, you know what? 2017 was the best year. Oh. And Andy and I we immediately looked at each other because we knew that was the year. I was done. Like I was walking out and I was done.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and we're like, what? And she goes, yeah, that's when we did this, and we went camping here. And remember when we did, I think we got our puppy, then like a different puppy, and remember when we did this? And we just sat there and we laughed because we're like, oh Lord, you are so good. Like God is so good.
God. That's what she's taking away from this experience.
From 2017. Yeah. And we knew right away, and we're like, kids are so resilient.
Yeah.
They're so resilient. And I think just being open and honest, I didn't want to close the doors when we fought. We didn't fight in front of them. It's not like we yell or anything. It's just intense, just intense moments.
Frustration, right?
Frustration, massive frustration. Yeah. So, but that's a really so cool cute thing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. It's very sweet. Very sweet. So we're like, yeah, high five. We did good. They're okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was a great year.
Yeah, we're like,
the best.
Andy goes, yeah, best year of my life.
Oh. Well, this is okay. So do you have any advice for other spouses or partners who will be going through this journey? Like, what's one thing that you want to leave us with?
Have someone to talk to, because when you hold it all in, like that night in that hotel room, I felt such guilt. Mm-hmm. I felt so like shallow, and I had so many emotions, but the biggest thing was like, you are such a shallow person. Like, what's wrong with you? This is your husband. And I had my girlfriends to talk to privately about that, knowing it was a safe place to talk to. And I needed that. I needed that support system that wasn't Andy. My normal support system is hurting. Mm-hmm. My normal rock is hurting. Like, he has always been my rock, and now he's weak.
Right.
And so I think having a trusted support system that's not going, that is a mature support system that's going to encourage you and pray for you. And
that's wonderful advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like for you, Polly, to not want to know what he's talking to that support system about,
right?
Don't even about him. Like don't even worry about it. Just let him have his own space to get that out.
Yeah. Right.
I think is huge.
That's great advice. Did this whole experience branch you into this lifestyle of health with the
supplements?
Yeah, the supplements.
Yeah.
Is that how you got into it?
Yeah, for sure. So he, my prior company was like skincare, and it felt, when he was struggling, just, when his eyes were all dark and he had like the dark circles, and we just knew his reserves were depleted. Like, he's not getting nutrition. And then we were exposed to this company. For one, I hadn't been sleeping. And starting in the hospital in Seattle, I could not sleep. And you guys know what happens when you don't sleep. Like, you lose your mind. Mm-hmm. And so a girlfriend of mine sent me the sleep spray from that company, and I started sleeping through the night. That was like the gateway, where I was like, okay, tell me more. Then we got him on their bestseller, their multivitamin. And right away, I saw color come back to his face. I saw his moods lighten up. I saw like a brightness to his attitude. Everything just kind of lifted. I'm not going to say everything was perfect, but it just lifted enough for him to be able to really continue to heal. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, that is like one of the biggest reasons why we came over to that company and are so passionate about it. Because of what I see him. And he honestly, there's no better guinea pig than someone without a stomach.
I know, if it works for him, he can absorb it and digest.
Yeah. Because people had offered him stuff and sent him stuff, and we would see it a day later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, well, that didn't work.
Right.
There it is.
Straight through.
Yeah. So so with this one, it right away we knew it was getting absorbed properly, and that is really tough to find, and that takes a lot of chelation and bioavailability, you know, a bunch of words we won't talk about, but that has, not every supplement and vitamin is created equally.
Right.
And yeah, you guys are great guinea pigs without your stomach.
Yeah, you're gonna try it out.
I
right?
definitely am.
Yeah, Andrew sent her a bunch of stuff, so that was really nice.
Yeah, I think we sent you guys the digest, and we'll send you more. When is your surgery?
June 21st. Well, I was gonna order it. I did take it for a little bit, and I was like, it's not really doing anything for me right now. I don't know, maybe because I'm already really healthy, but I feel like there's something to those enzymes.
Yes, there is.
After gastrectomy.
Yes.
I feel like
well, you don't have them
to be studied more.
Yeah. For sure.
And I'll be the study and honors. Right?
Yeah, you can tell us.
Yes. I'm excited to see how that helps.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm even eating them for after.
Yeah, well, and even the probiotic, like you've got these spore-formed probiotics that are designed to survive the stomach acid, which we're like, well, for you, you don't have any, so will they still release straight into the intestines? And they've been phenomenal for him. So, so combining those two things, the enzymes and the probiotic, are just lifesavers for him. And he can use the enzymes. He uses them every day for maintenance, but then he also uses them on an as needed basis. And I do too. Like Easter Sunday, I ate way too much, and I just took a couple of the enzymes to just help my stomach break things down a little bit faster.
Yeah. That's great.
It's good to have on you.
It is.
And then, so the company is called Q Science.
Q Sciences. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're going to link that down below so people can go to that site and
or give us your special link or whatever.
I'll give you my link. Yeah. So you guys can put that in there. Yeah. And that's just one area we focus on for him. Obviously, like, we're both passionate about fitness and all of that stuff. So we have pre-workouts and greens and collagen. But everyone kind of finds where their gap is. Mm-hmm. And then you choose to fill that one gap. I don't suggest people get on $800 worth of supplements a month. But usually we all have like one gap,
right,
that we want to focus on. So
cool.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
I'm so happy we did this. This was your idea, and it was fabulous. And I'm so glad that we got to talk to you, because I know there's so many people out there who are going to be struggling through this experience. So
yeah. Well, when I heard his interview, I'm like, boy, that sounds like sign me up for a total gastrectomy.
Yeah. I know. That's how we've been feeling. Like, we can do this. Yeah. This is great.
Well, and you can. And I think that's his heart, is he doesn't want to set anyone up to feel scared, or he's just so sweet, and he is victorious. But I do think it's important to see the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. So thank you for being open with us and exposing it. And
absolutely. Well, let's stay in touch, you guys. And I'm so excited for what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. Let's definitely keep in touch.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.